Have you ever felt like everything you are, everything you've worked for, could disappear in a single moment? Today I want to tell you about Maria Santos, a woman who thought she knew exactly who she was, until one devastating day changed everything. This is a story about losing your voice and finding your true purpose. Picture this. You're 28 years old, standing on the edge of everything you've ever dreamed of. 6 years of late-night rehearsals, countless small venues, sleeping on friends' couches, all leading to this one moment. A showcase performance that could change your life forever. Record label executives will be there. Your phone has been buzzing with calls from industry professionals who finally started to notice your band, your voice, your instrument. It's not just what you do, it's who you are. Now imagine that voice gone. This is Maria's story. Maria Santos had calluses on her fingertips from years of guitar practice, but it was her voice that made people stop and listen. Not just pretty, haunting. The kind of voice that could make a crowded bar fall silent mid-conversation. She'd been the lead singer of Midnight Canvas for 6 years. 6 years of building something from nothing. Her bandmates weren't just musicians, they were her chosen family. Jake on drums, who'd stuck with her since those early days playing coffee shops for tips. Lisa on bass, who could make 4 strings sound like an orchestra. And Marcus on lead guitar, whose riffs could make you cry or make you dance, sometimes both. They'd finally made it out of the local scene. Their EP was getting radio play 3 states over. Music blogs were calling them the next big thing. Maria's social media followers had jumped from hundreds to thousands seemingly overnight. But here's what you need to understand about Maria. Her voice wasn't just her talent. It was her identity. When people asked what she did, she didn't say, "I'm a musician," or "I'm in a band." She said, "I'm a singer." When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone whose purpose was written in every note she could hit, every emotion she could convey through song. The showcase was scheduled for the following Tuesday. 7 days away. Record executives from 2 major labels were confirmed to attend. Monday afternoon, the band gathered for what should have been their final rehearsal. The venue was this old warehouse space they'd rented. Concrete floors and exposed brick walls that gave their sound this raw, authentic echo. Maria could taste the excitement in the air, that metallic tang of adrenaline mixed with hope. They started with their opening number, Gravity's Pull. Maria's voice soared through the first verse, rich and powerful, but as they moved into their emotional centerpiece, Silent Storms, something felt different. The song demanded everything from her voice. It started soft, almost whispered, then built to this soaring, heart-wrenching climax. Maria had performed it hundreds of times, but this time, as she reached for that signature high note in the bridge, she felt something tear. Not physically visible, but she knew. Every singer knows. It was like feeling a guitar string snap inside her throat. The note cracked, broke apart, and fell to pieces in the dusty air of that warehouse. "You okay?" Jake called from behind his drum kit, concern creeping into his voice. Maria touched her throat gently. "Yeah, just let me get some water." But water didn't help. Her voice had gone hoarse, scratchy. They tried to continue rehearsal, but every note felt like sandpaper against her vocal cords. "Maybe you're just tired," Lisa suggested, ever the optimist. "You've been pushing hard lately." Maria nodded, but inside, panic was starting to bloom. She'd never experienced anything like this. Her voice had always been reliable, always there when she needed it. That night, she could barely whisper. Tuesday morning, the day that was supposed to change everything. Maria woke up and tried to speak. Nothing, not even a whisper. Just air and the feeling of something fundamentally broken. The doctor's office smelled like antiseptic and crushed dreams. Dr. Williams, a specialist who'd seen countless performers over the years, looked at Maria's vocal cords through a thin, flexible camera. His expression told her everything before he said a word. "Severe vocal cord damage," he said, his voice gentle but direct. "You've got nodules, and there's significant swelling. This didn't happen overnight, Maria. You've been pushing your voice beyond its limits for months, maybe years." Maria's world started tilting. "But I have a showcase tonight. Record labels are coming. This is everything." Dr. Williams set down his chart. "Maria, you need surgery. And even then, you're looking at months of recovery, complete vocal rest. No singing, no whispering, no talking above the barest minimum for at least 12 weeks. The words hit her like physical blows. Surgery. Months. No singing. Will I be able to sing again? Like before? The pause that followed was deafening. I can't make promises about your voice returning to its previous range. Recovery varies. Some singers come back stronger. Others, he didn't finish the sentence. The phone calls were the hardest part. Jake answered when she couldn't speak, explaining to the record label representatives that the showcase was canceled. Maria sat there, listening to her dreams being dismantled one conversation at a time. The band tried to stay positive at first. We'll wait, Marcus said, however long it takes. But weeks turned into months. Without their lead singer, Midnight Canvas couldn't perform, couldn't record, couldn't exist. The momentum they'd built over 6 years evaporated like morning mist. One by one, her bandmates found other projects, not out of betrayal but out of necessity. Musicians need to eat, need to play, need to create. Jake joined a cover band. Lisa started doing session work. Marcus got a job teaching guitar lessons. Maria understood, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. For 3 months, she lived in near-complete silence. The surgery had gone well, technically speaking, but the recovery was brutal. No speaking above a whisper, no singing, no humming. Even laughing too hard could damage the healing tissue. She stopped going to concerts, couldn't handle hearing other people's voices soaring where hers once had. She avoided her guitar, her keyboard, even her phone when music apps would accidentally start playing. Her apartment, once filled with the sound of her practicing scales and writing melodies, became a tomb of silence. Friends tried to visit, but conversations felt awkward, stilted. How do you maintain relationships when you can't speak? How do you be yourself when the thing that made you you is gone? Maria started avoiding mirrors. Every reflection showed her someone she didn't recognize, someone whose identity had been stripped away with her voice. The depression crept in slowly, then all at once. Days blended together in a haze of silence and self-pity. She'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering who she was if she wasn't a singer. What was her purpose if she couldn't create music? Some nights she'd dream that her voice had returned. She'd wake up trying to sing, only to remember the crushing reality. The silence was deafening. The turning point. 3.5 months after the surgery, Maria's therapist made a suggestion that sounded absurd. You need to get out of your apartment, Dr. Chen said during one of their sessions. Find somewhere to go where being quiet is appropriate, where you won't feel like your silence is a disability. Like where? Maria whispered, her voice still barely audible. Volunteer work. Libraries, hospitals, places where quiet is valued. Maria almost laughed. Almost. What could I possibly offer anyone right now? Your presence, your time, your compassion. The Children's Hospital downtown had been looking for volunteers. The orientation was simple. Read to kids, help with activities. Just be there for families going through difficult times. Maria's first day, she was assigned to the pediatric wing. Room after room of children dealing with challenges that made her lost voice seem trivial. She felt ashamed of her self-pity. In room 314, she met Tommy. 8 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up the darkest corners. He was coloring in a book, his small hands moving in deliberate, practiced motions. "Hi," Maria whispered. Tommy looked up and began moving his hands in fluid, graceful gestures. It took Maria a moment to realize he was using sign language. A nurse nearby noticed her confusion. "Tommy's deaf," she explained. "But don't let that fool you. He's got more personality than most adults I know." Tommy had apparently asked what Maria's name was because the nurse signed back to him, then looked at Maria. "He wants to know if you'd like to learn some signs." Over the next few visits, Tommy became Maria's unofficial sign language teacher. His patience was extraordinary for an 8-year-old. He'd show her the sign for hello, then wait as she practiced the hand movements. When she got frustrated with herself, he'd make exaggerated funny faces until she smiled. One afternoon, about 2 weeks into her volunteering, Tommy did something that changed everything. He started singing. Not with his voice, obviously, but with his entire body. His hands moved in flowing gestures. His face showed every emotion. His shoulders swayed with an internal rhythm. Maria watched, mesmerized, as this little boy created music through movement and expression. When he finished, he looked at Maria expectantly, then signed something she was beginning to understand. "Your turn." Maria shook her head, pointed to her throat, and mouthed, "I can't sing." Tommy's response was to sign something that the nurse later translated. "Singing isn't just with your voice, it's with your heart." Then he did something that broke Maria's heart wide open. He took her hands and placed them over his chest as he sang again. She could feel the rhythm, the emotion, the music vibrating through his small body. For the first time in months, Maria felt connected to music again. The breakthrough. The next week, Tommy approached Maria with a piece of paper covered in his 8-year-old handwriting. Through the nurse's translation, she learned that Tommy wanted to create a song for his mother's birthday. Not sing it, obviously, but create it, express it, share it. "Will you help me?" The nurse interpreted his signs. Maria stared at the paper. Words about love, about courage, about how his mom was his hero. Simple, honest, beautiful words. She nodded. They spent the afternoon working together. Maria would suggest a melody by humming so quietly it was barely audible. Then Tommy would interpret it through movement. When words didn't flow right, Maria would write suggestions. When Tommy wanted to express something but didn't have the signs, they'd create their own gestures. Something magical happened in that sterile hospital room. Maria discovered she could still create music, just not the way she'd always done it. They used hand gestures for rhythm, written words for lyrics, body movement for melody. Tommy's emotional expressions brought the song to life in ways Maria had never imagined possible. When they performed it for Tommy's mother the next day, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The song wasn't heard in the traditional sense, but it was felt by everyone present. Maria realized something profound. She'd been thinking of music too narrowly. Music wasn't just sound, it was communication, it was emotion, it was connection. And she could still do all of those things. The resolution begins. Maria's voice did eventually return, though it was different. Softer in some ways, more limited in range, but somehow more intentional. Every note felt precious now because she'd learned what it meant to live without them. But here's the thing. By the time her voice returned, Maria had discovered something more important than her vocal cords. She'd found her true calling. The hospital's music therapy program was understaffed and underfunded. Maria approached the director with a proposal. What if they could serve children with hearing impairments and speech challenges using alternative forms of musical expression? With Tommy as her first success story, Maria began developing a revolutionary approach to music therapy. She combined traditional instruments with adaptive technology, sign language with movement, visual art with sound waves. Children who had never been able to participate in traditional music programs suddenly found ways to express themselves musically. Kids with autism who struggled with verbal communication discovered they could sing through hand movements. Children with hearing impairments learned to feel rhythm through vibration and express melody through dance. 5 years later, Maria's program has expanded to serve hundreds of children across the state. She's trained dozens of other therapists in her methods. Her techniques are being studied and replicated in hospitals and schools nationwide. But the real transformation isn't in the numbers, it's in the stories. There's Sarah, a 12-year-old with cerebral palsy who composes symphonies using eye-tracking technology. There's Marcus, not her old bandmate but a 6-year-old Marcus who was born without vocal cords and now leads his school's silent choir using sign language and synchronized movement. And there's Tommy, now 13, who has become Maria's teaching assistant, helping other children discover their own unique ways of making music. Maria's old band? They're still friends, still make music together occasionally, but none of them would go back to the way things were before. They've all grown into versions of themselves they never would have discovered if Maria's voice hadn't failed. Jake teaches drumming to kids with ADHD, using rhythm to help them focus. Lisa works with elderly dementia patients, using bass lines to trigger memories. Marcus has a program for veterans with PTSD, using guitar therapy to process trauma. Maria's voice injury didn't just change her life, it rippled out to transform dozens of other lives too. Thank you for joining me for another story here on The Turning Point. Maria's journey reminds us that sometimes losing what we think defines us reveals what we're truly meant to become. Your greatest strengths often emerge from your deepest wounds, and sometimes the universe takes away our good to give us our great. What have you lost that felt like the end of the world? What failure or setback made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself? Maybe you're in that dark place right now, wondering who you are without the thing that used to define you. But here's what I want you to consider. What if that loss isn't the end of your story? What if it's actually the beginning of a chapter you never could have written otherwise? Sometimes losing what we think we need reveals what the world actually needs from us. If Maria's story moved you, I'd love to hear about a time when your deepest wound became your greatest gift to others. Or maybe you're still in the silence, still discovering what voice might emerge from your struggle. Leave a comment below and share your story. Your turning point might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. And if you're ready for another powerful transformation, watch out for our next video. We drop a new one every week. Click the video above or check the link in the description. Before you go, if Maria's journey resonated with you, hit that like button. It really helps us reach more people who might need to hear these stories. And make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you won't miss our weekly videos. Each story we share could be the turning point that changes everything for someone who needs it most. Your purpose might be waiting on the other side of your pain. I'll see you in the next video.